I really want to talk to you about the idea of play and playfulness. And I know that we focus a lot on fun and like adding fun to fear to make it an adventure, but I was realizing that play is actually slightly different than fun in that I don't really add play to be productive. And so I thought this would be a good place to talk about it because here I am playing right now. This is a work day, but instead I'm in the mountains, actually just summited Lone Pine Peak back behind me, which was awesome and just a great place to play with fear and sort of like pushing the envelope of what I think I'm capable of and what I'm willing to do on this particular day, all those things. It was great. But I know that we all, most of us anyway, I will say, we understand the value of play. There's a lot of research that says that it calms the nervous system, that it brings us peace and recharge. It actually builds our energy, and it can keep us more consistent in pursuing the activities that we want to pursue over long periods of time, that it helps us to tap into flow state, which increases our creativity and our innovation. There are tons of stories about how Google gives free time to their employees where they're just allowed to just go tinker. I think they may even call it tinker time. And they're allowed to just like create things, and they present them then later in meetings about, hey, this is what I came up with. And how many of these cool stories about how great innovations that have actually moved the company forward have come from this time that was not intended to move the company forward. And I think that somewhere deep down we know this, but I've also been coming across a lot of people lately who I feel like they don't know how to play. And so I wanted to make this podcast just to talk about how you actually do it. And I'm going to start with some examples. One that comes to mind is that my buddy Jason, we would always get in these conversations as we were out here on these hikes, we were walking for hours. And in some of the non-technical parts, you just want your brain just to be busy. And so we're having these conversations, and it would come up like if you're stranded on a desert island, and he would always say, if I had just a basketball hoop and any kind of a ball, I could keep myself entertained on a desert island for like 10 years. And the idea, as silly as it sounds, is that he would, you know, come up with every trick shot you could, like he would be throwing it from hanging off this tree, and he would be trying to make 15 in a row, and he would just set goals that didn't really add up to anything. They weren't moving the needle in any way. He would just like working on it. Similarly, my dad, all he needs is a lake and rocks, and that guy will skip rocks for hours. And here's what's interesting: he will actually skip rocks to the point that he hurts himself. He'll hurt his shoulder, he'll hurt his elbow, and he, even knowing that it's going to hurt his elbow, he wants to get 7 skips. He's going to do it till he gets 7. Well, now I want to get 8. Now I want to get 17. Now I want to see if I can skip it all the way across the lake. Now I want to see if I can just throw it across the lake. And these things just keep coming up. Games, right? It's like the new game. This is how we're going to play at this. And I also got to see my daughter as she was growing up. She would say, "Dad, will you play with me?" And I'd be like, "Sure, Paige, yeah, let's play. What do you want to play?" And she would actually spend the entire play time telling me the rules about the game that we were about to play. It's like, okay, this is what's going to happen. You're going to be this character. You're going to be this character. Now, this character does this thing in this way, and this character does this other thing in this way. And so I get distracted. There's a dog just jumped into this lake in the Sierras. I'm not even sure that's okay. And so all these rules were in place, and then once the rules were done, the game was over. Like, that was it. It was just this idea of playing, of setting up these rules to play the game. And one other one I want to point out is that I actually made a deal with myself when I was about 8 to 10. I was old enough to walk to a gas station called AM/PM that was near my grandma's house, and I went there with my cousin Jackson. And the two of us were just talking about, man, ATM was kind of a new concept, a new-ish concept, at least to our families. And so we were like, yeah, it's crazy that adults can just go put that card in and then $20 comes out. If I was an adult, what I would do is I would put that card in, I would get that $20, and I would come and I would just buy every candy that I wanted to at this AM/PM store. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. One day I'm going to be an adult, and I'm going to have one of those cards, and I'm going to do it. And no joke, 20 years later, I did it. I had my card, and I didn't even really want any candy at the time, but I wanted to honor that like sort of playful spirit. I wanted to honor the child inside me and this promise that I had sort of made to him in the future. I wanted to back it up. And so I did. I went and spent $20 on candy, and you spend $20 on candy, you start digging deep. You're out of the Snickers, M&Ms, Reese's peanut butter cups, like that stuff. That's in the first $5. We're getting like Mamba candy, like that, all sorts of weird stuff. So I just throw those out there as sort of like four actually just examples of what play might look like. And then as I was reflecting on those, I'm like, okay, so what do these have in common? Like, what is it that I call play in these different scenarios from different people? And I think that what play is to me is it's the fourth pillar of what I want to do with my time. That I want to be productive. I want to be productive towards goals, make progress towards goals. I want to pursue a purpose of some kind in my life. I want to make a big contribution. And then I want to play. And the reason it's sort of its other category over here is because that's what helps me define play. That play is using up my time and not contributing, not pursuing a purpose, and not pursuing any type of a goal, except for maybe a goal that's just in the present. It's very much in the present. It's not a goal in the future. Like I was saying, my dad may try to skip the rock 7 times. There is that kind of a goal, but it's only for now. It doesn't do anything. He wasn't trying to become a professional rock skipper. He wasn't trying to become a pitcher. So he's working out. None of it was like translating to, okay, this is productive in another area. It was just for this moment. And then I start to realize that one of the places I do this most, or the people that do this most, of course, are kids. And in our business, we constantly talk about the toddler in your brain, your lower brain, like kind of acts like a toddler. It just wants what it wants, and it wants it now. And it's often like derailing you from the things that you want to do. And if I think about, well, how do I relate to a toddler? Well, I play. It's literally how I do it. And so I can start to see that this is a really powerful concept of being in play and just looking for where is this instant gratification in this moment, not in like a negative way, instant gratification. I'm not trying to buffer or instant gratification. I'm trying to get away from something or get to someplace with a shortcut. I'm talking about achieving a goal that only exists in the present. It's something I'm only trying to do right now that doesn't necessarily send ripples into my future, outside of the obvious benefits in terms of mindset of play. And so then I'm thinking, so how do I know when it's play? Like how do I recognize it versus like, pursuing a goal from fun or anything else? And so I started to think of examples that come to mind, and it's like, as an adult, if you're like, oh, I've always wondered what's in that neighborhood. I've always wondered where that road goes, or I've always wondered what's up that creek. I don't know, what's in there. If you were to just go, then you're sort of honoring your wonder. And that's a big piece of what it looks like to play. That's how you can know that you're playing. Or maybe you see something like right now over here. I may even try to show you. This could be a big mistake because this is precariously hanging right there. There's a lake that we're camping near. Now I get to find out if my play is going to cost me. Sometimes I like to just sit and look at a lake. And I'm not pondering anything. I'm not doing self-reflection. I'm not doing thought work or trying to grow or understand myself better. I'm just like, I just want to look at the lake. And so if you ever notice that, you're like, you know what? There's these trees or this hillside or the ocean or this place where I just want to go look. And I keep on trying to make it productive by adding a podcast, or that's where I'll read a book, or maybe I could, check these emails. It's like, yeah, you're hunting for permission. It's like you want permission to play. And that is where you want to really check yourself. You want that to be a red flag anytime that you're looking for permission to play. Because it's as if you're thinking that productivity, that pursuing your purpose and contribution are somehow more important than play. Now, I don't think they're less important, but I also don't think they're more important. And as you give yourself that permission, as you're like, no, I don't need to have checked everything off my list before I'm allowed to play. No, I don't need to also tie something else to it that I could then count as productivity whenever I'm going to do my playtime. Then you start to understand that play is a bit misunderstood in terms of the effect that it has in our life. A really good example that comes to mind in terms of this, like, okay, let's be goal focused, let's be productivity focused, is that when I was teaching in Texas, they had STAR tests. And these STAR tests were state tests that were, meant to measure student progress. They're probably a little bit meant to keep teachers, accountable, and to what do they always talk about? Data driven decisions, in education, whatever. What I noticed about them was that this test would happen in about March when I was teaching geometry. And so that leaves April and May still in the school year. So the kids would come to school after they had taken this end of course exam, and they would say things like, "Oh, I'm so relieved," like, "Oh, it's so nice that that's over." And I'd be like, "Why? What's so different now?" And they're like, "Now we could just learn. I love that now we could just learn." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like politicians need to hear this. People need to know this." And these kids are like, they separate it. They're like, one is productivity and goal oriented, and the other is the act of just learning. This like playful, creative, innovative, self-reflective, curiosity-induced process of gaining information into their life, which is what we're trying to do in a school anyway. And it only happens once the prioritization on productive and goal focus is decreased enough to where this sort of like play sort of feeling can like, well, what do I want to learn right now? What can I learn? And I got to taste this at its highest level when one year I got to teach a course. It was an emergency course. A teacher left at the last minute. There were kids signed up. It wasn't for any sort of college credit. They just needed someone to teach a class. And so they called it psychology, but I was instructed that I could teach whatever I wanted. So we started off with positive psychology. This is before I was in mindset coaching, but basically it was mindset coaching is what we ended up teaching. And then they were like, okay, well, we want to know about student loans. Okay, well, we want to know about, how to set up a budget for our home. I'm trying to remember some of the other fun things that were in there, but it was so random. It was all over the place. And each time that we got to the end of a section, I would ask the kids, what do you want to learn next? And then they would tell me, and then I would just go do whatever research I needed to research to teach it. And that class was packed. It was packed. They kept asking, will you accept another student? Could you accept another student? Because we're supposed to do like 30-to-1 ratio, right? Well, there's already 37 students in there. Will you accept another one? And I was like, yeah, if you'll give me a desk, I'll take another student. And so we just had the best time in there. And it was very just chill. It wasn't so rigid. We weren't productive. Instead, what we were doing is playing. We were in the moment trying to learn the thing that we wanted to learn. And it was awesome because I did have to provide tests. Like I had to give tests and grades for this stuff, but the kids would learn everything that was on the test, even kids that were traditionally not so great at learning. And so that's sort of the last thing that I want to mention with this is that the more time you spend playing, and the more you really understand what playing is and what it's not. I'm not talking about just sitting on the couch and binge watching a TV show because you want to escape from your life. I'm talking about going and climbing a mountain. Even though you don't want to be a mountain climber as a profession, you just want to know, oh my gosh, I just want to have the experience of sitting on top of that mountain and eating some Triscuits. And so you go do these things. The more that you do it, the more it busts the myth that somehow prioritizing playfulness on an even bar with productivity and contribution and even your purpose in life, that letting it go up and have that sort of prioritization, that it detracts from the others. That's the big myth. You'll find that it doesn't. That you're more creative, you're more innovative, you're more energized, and you've got more desire, more curiosity, and more wonder. And you just end up pouring into those things and living a life that you're not trying to escape, which is what actually ends up detracting from those other things. And so if nothing else, just trust me that in those moments when you want to say, hey, what's down that road, that if you just take your car and you turn left and you drive down that road and you go find out and you put on some of your favorite music and you just have this playful experience of honoring your wonder, I promise you will find that you are actually more productive. You are moving closer to your purpose, and that you are more generous and willing to contribute to the world than if you were just to continue to stay on your commute every day. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Ask Steadfast. Whit and I are super excited to use this avenue to sort of spread our message. And so it would mean a ton to us if you'd subscribe to this channel. Additionally, if you have any questions you'd like to see addressed in future episodes, whether serious or funny, we'd love to see those in the comments. So leave that in the comment below, and we'll see you in the next one.